Are we cooking away?
We are.
So now, Vic, was there a lot of humour in your household when you were a kid?
No.
Wasn't
No,
there?
my father was quite funny. My mother always famously claimed to have no sense of humour whatsoever, which I think was true.
Right.
And so I was the funny one out of the four of us. I used to pull faces, that's what I was good at. My mother used to say, go and pull us one of your faces, and I'd go in the back kitchen and think of a face and come back and pull it.
Impressions of people
No,
or
I
just
was only
funny
about
faces?
four. I was only about
Okay.
four. Funny faces, a funny face.
Okay, so pull funny faces to order, in fact.
Yes,
That's what...
yeah, which
Right.
is really what
And
I
they
ended
would
up doing.
laugh. They would laugh hilariously at
They
this.
would, yeah.
And so were you tempted to perform inside the family for the brothers and
No.
sisters too?
No, we lived in a house where we were all in separate rooms, so we didn't interact at all. I had a room with a television and a piano in it that I was just in on my own. We didn't eat together after a certain point in our family life.
Didn't you?
No, we did everything separately.
Okay. And you say your dad was funny. What
Yes,
do you
my
mean,
dad was very witty. My dad played piano and wrote music and wrote songs and wrote radio plays and was funny.
radio plays that were on the radio.
Yeah.
Did he?
Mm.
So you are from a showbiz family.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty showbiz parents.
He was an insurance salesman, but he was, in his spare time, he wrote.
And when you went to school, to junior school, were you encouraged to be anything of a performer?
Not at all.
There.
Not at all at junior school. No, I was fairly quiet. I was just one of the clever ones.
And senior school, did any of
Senior school, I did things like I wrote funny things sometimes and read them out, but I was not the class clown. I didn't attract a lot of attention to myself. I could only really do it through writing and later on through acting.
And were you in a group of girls? Did you have a little gang?
I was outside a gang. I looked very enviously upon gangs and groups and wanted to be in them, and I was never in one until later.
Did you not try to insert yourself into a gang?
I did try. I mean, I tried too hard in that way that it never ever will work. And I had, other lame friends who were always trying to do the same thing that you didn't really want to be friends with, but they were just available because they had calipers or plasters over their glasses or something. And I was fat, so I was in the losers group, really.
So not at all using the humour to attract people to you then?
No, I didn't have that ability to attract attention. I didn't want to attract attention in a lot of ways, but secretly I did, but I didn't know how you did it. And I was always very admiring of various girls that were funny, and I would say now that they're still funny and that they were funnier than I was at the time.
Who did you laugh at when you were growing up? Can you remember?
I can't really remember, except I watched everything that was ever on the television that was a comedy. So I think I just laughed at everything. I mean, I can remember Lucille Ball and I can remember Phil Silvers, but I don't remember anything particular that I liked about them. I think I just liked the fact that it was comedy, and I would only go to the cinema if it was a comedy, and my parents would get the paper on a Friday night and go through the films, and I would say, is it a comedy, is it a comedy, is it a comedy? And if it wasn't, I wouldn't go. I was just very, very drawn to comedy.
So you were watching things like Jerry Lewis?
Yes. Yeah.
Comedy movies like that?
Yes, comedy movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember any women that particularly...
The two women I remember very well. One was Libby Morris, who I think is Canadian, who was on the television. She had a thing that's called a one-woman show, and I used to think, what on earth is that, a one-woman show? And then the other person I did see live on stage was Joyce Grenfell, when I was about 6. And I was taken round to meet her at the end of the show.
Were you?
And I remember that very, very well. I remember the show, I remember some of the lines. I remember very well the fact that she was just standing on stage on her own. I'd never seen anybody do that before. I'd been to pantomimes and I'd been to plays. I'd never seen one person stand on the stage on their own. And she came on and she said, I'll give you a moment to decide whether my dress is leaf green or lettuce green. And she looked at the audience, she said, oh, well, it's quality, not quantity. So it was obviously a half-empty house. I think it was in Buxton. And at the end of the show, my sister said they wanted to go around and see her. I don't know why. It was a strange thing to do. My mother said, oh, you can't go because you're too little. So we waited outside and she came out and she said, oh, is this Vicky? Which was my name at the time. And she came out and said hello to me. And I never, ever forgot it.
Did you love the show?
Yeah, I loved it, yeah. I love the fact that she was peopling the stage with nothing but words, and that you could see those children that were doing awful things. George, don't do that. I could see all that happening in front of me.
So really, she was an inspiration then?
She was.
Okay.
She was an inspiration, not just because she was good, but because it put the idea in my head of a woman standing on stage on her own. And that was a very, very powerful image, and I think that really informed what I did later.
I've got a bit of a query going on in my mind at the moment about whether comedy is a sort of slightly, whether it's a proper job.
Well, I think it would be a very thin way to live if there were no comedians. And I think they're very life enhancing when they're good, and it's a very important part of the way we live is to have it celebrated in comedy.
Yeah, and I guess we always have had comedians. Even if we've paid jesters to kind of come into court.
Hit us with pig's bladders. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That old routine.
Yeah, but we haven't quite rewarded them in the way that comedians now seem to have a sort of slightly rock and roll status. I mean, there's a big fashion for comedy.
Yeah, there is a fashion, but I think it is just a fashion, and it will fade away. And
you seem to be slightly outside that thing, always, all the way along. You managed to escape the alternative thing.
Well, that's because I was too old. I was too old to be alternative.
But you were being alternative, if I understand alternative
yes,
correctly.
but I just wasn't in that. I wasn't in that group. I was like 3 or 4 years ahead.
Yeah, yeah, but you managed to not be branded as anything particularly. You've managed to sail right through the middle. Why do you think
people
that?
were just baffled, I think, when I first arrived, because people always like to label you, and they didn't know what to make of me. And also, I wasn't very good, so I don't blame them for their bafflement, really. There is no label for it, and then eventually people just like it for what it is, and they don't worry about what it is.
Yeah, and of course now virtually all the people we've spoken to, certainly the stand-up girls, are referred to as a bit like Victoria Wood, or not quite like Victoria Wood, or not as good as Victoria Wood. So you're the person everybody's measured up to now. When did you first think that comedy could actually be a career for you?
I'm not sure. I first joined a theatre workshop, a youth theatre, when I was about 15, and that was the first time I ever felt, like a key's gone in a lock and I know what I'm doing. I understand I have something that I can do, and I played a comedy charwoman in a play, and I thought, I can do something. And up until that point, I never really felt I was any good at anything, really. And people were always crossing me, people were always disappointed and saying, you're not good, you don't work hard enough, you look a mess. And that was the first time I felt sort of really comfortable about doing anything. But I didn't articulate that as something that could be a career choice. And I remember at school they used to say to me, well, you should be in journalism, or you should be in advertising, because you're very very quick to write. You have a good vocabulary. I was quite funny when I wrote, but I didn't actually think of being a comedian. It just didn't occur to me. And I didn't think I would make it as an actress, because I didn't think I had the conventional looks to go into rep. So I was thinking quite a small box of what I could do. But then by the time I got to university, I suppose I just wanted to perform somehow. I mean, I just blundered around. I was so thick about the way I approached everything that it did take me quite a few years to get a grip, really, to work out what you did and how you did it.
Well, it's not as if there's any actual guidance towards this job, is there?
No.
I mean, you wouldn't sit with a careers advisor who would say, can write well, seems to be funny.
Yes.
Perhaps stand-up would be nobody would ever suggest that.
I remember going to a careers fair in Bury, where I lived, and the drama section was just a very miserable man with dandruff, and I said, I want to be an actress. He said, don't. That's my advice to you, don't. And that was the careers fair at Bury.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next. Oh dear. Do you think that performing stand-up, does it make you happy?
It's taken me a long time to reach a point where I could receive what I was getting, that I could just sort of take it and enjoy it. I think, I approached it in such a, not a tense way, but, so anxious to get it right and to be the best I could be with it, that I didn't always relax with it. And I watch other people and I think they're not working half as hard as me, and they're much better. You don't have to be perfect. You could just be, and it would be all right. So I think next time I go back and do it, I might approach it in a slightly different way.
Oh, you thought that very recently?
Yes, yeah.
Good Lord, I wouldn't know that. I really wouldn't know that.
But I mean, I have enjoyed a lot of the stuff I've done. The last show I did enjoy it, and also I had somebody else on stage with me. I had a keyboard player on stage, and that made a huge difference to me, because it just somebody else to catch an eye with. The thing I found about it is it's very, very lonely, and that's the thing I don't like about it.
Yeah.
Is that you travel from town to town, you sit in a dressing room on your own watching the clock tick round to 8 o'clock, and you think, if I don't get up on stage, nothing's going to happen tonight. It's just me now. And I find that very lowering. I just find it quite depressing. that you have to. It's all right once you're on the stage, but that sort of waiting, and it's only you. And
Yeah.
I think it's quite a hard thing to have the right temperament.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're sort of hard drinking bloke with a great entourage. Then
And you're not.
And
a
I'm
hard-drinking
not.
bloke with a
I'm
great
not either of
entourage.
those or any of those.
Do you hold with the old chestnut that being a funny person necessarily means you've got to be extremely depressed?
No, but I think it has to be said that a lot of people who choose comedy are coming from a place of alienation or of feeling apart or feeling disjointed from things, which gives them that great sort of crackpot view of things. It's not the people who were chosen for the netball team that are all our great stand-up comedians. It is spotty, specky, lard-arsed people generally, and people that an audience feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
I mean, in America possibly it's different. Their women tend to be more glamorous, but in England, women stand-up comedians tend to be a bit potato-faced.
Yeah. Do you think it's an attractive thing to be funny?
Yes.
Did you ever find that it worked with boys when you were a bit younger, when you were on the lookout for the
No,
boys?
it has never ever had any knock-on effect sexually.
Shame.
Yes,
But,
pity.
do you think...
I'm not sure that it is attractive socially. No, I'm not sure actually, because I think people find it intimidating. They either find it intimidating or they feel they need to top you, joke-wise.
Yes.
Or they need to impress you. I mean, I think that's after you reach a certain level of celebrity, then any encounter you have with a stranger is informed by the fact that they know you're a comedian, and so they can't just say, I got off a bus. They're, I got off a bus? And, please, I want to know.
But I think possibly around comedians, it's the desire of other people to please the comedian as well, to have the crack.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think I sense sometimes people are disappointed when they meet me because I don't usually say very much.
But do you decide whether you're going to be generous then or not?
Socially, I just don't have that urge to really talk to people I don't know.
You're a hermit. Let's leave it at that. I think I am a little bit that. I do think that. Sometimes I will avoid going to something.
Yes.
Because I think that's going to be like work.
Yes, it's a sort of energy that I absolutely put into my work that I don't want to put into my private life, I suppose.
Yeah. And people do tend to think, I know Lenny has this, where people will say, oh, cheer up.
Yeah,
to him all the time, because his face in repose, it doesn't look like cheerful old Len. And they wonder why he's, they think he's been a bit grumpy.
Yes.
I find personally, I don't know if this happens to you, that I am a gift usually to the parents and the older people at weddings. I am chosen to sit in a corner with groups of elderly relatives. Because I will behave and I will feel the need to entertain them a bit. Can't help that.
I absolutely feel the need not to, really. But then I find that usually people will take over and entertain themselves, so that's fine. Yeah. I'm happy to listen to any old rubbish.
So you definitely don't feel the need to... It's not performing necessarily, but it's being...
It's pumping out that thing that you would pump out on stage.
It is.
And I don't like doing it.
So maybe that's not natural to you anyway, to do that.
No, I guess it's not.
No. No. I think Jennifer's very like that. Jennifer is exactly like that. Jennifer Fathead.
Oh, I know.
Is very much like that. She really will not, and she's the only person I know.
She'll barely open her mouth anyway.
Barely. She got immobile top lip. She was told. She was told at drama college, immobile top lip.
Well, I was told I had a deformed jaw.
Well,
as I was being not accepted to drama school.
Was that because you wouldn't speak?
No, I was trying to speak when I was showing my mouth to the sideways.
You've obviously got it sorted since then.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would know.
Jennifer is the only person I know that will sit at the hairdressers and say, could you not talk to me, please, because I really don't want to engage in any conversation while we're having a haircut. And then she doesn't have to speak.
The rest of us are straining to discuss our holiday plans.
Yes. Now I am thinking, oh God, I hope I've got enough energy to entertain this hairdresser for the next 40 minutes. What have I done in my life that I could exaggerate for her amusement? I mean, that's pathetic, isn't it? I'm definite need to please person. Do you seek approval from anyone?
I think that the approval I've sought from my career has been enough, really. It hasn't had to spill over. I don't seek it from everybody I meet. I'm not trying to impress everybody. I'm not trying to make everybody laugh. But it's been a real need for me to do that on stage. But luckily, I've had that.
What happens with you and critics? How do you handle that?
Very badly. I'm very oversensitive to what people say. I find it really upsetting. I try not to read them, even the good ones. I don't. It's too. I feel like I've got a skin missing, really.
Yeah.
You know, I feel I should be robust and should say yes, it's tomorrow's chip paper, but those words are emblazoned on my mind. The first time I went to the Edinburgh Festival in '74 when I was about 21, and I had a review saying, well, at least when she's acting, she's not singing, so that's something, you know. And my first play, it said, oh, we've seen this before, you know. And I was, so pleased to have written a play. It really hurts.
But can you remember as clearly as that any nice things people have
I can't
written?
remember anything. No.
Have you ever wanted to escape from an image you've created of yourself that you think other people have?
Well, I've never really known what my image was, what other people... Luckily, you don't know what people see of you. Thank God. I don't think I could live with that if that was projected onto the back of my eyeballs. So I don't worry about it, really. I just try and look like I look and not worry what people are seeing and what they're taking from it.
Have you ever thought, people think that you're this kind of performer and you want to battle against that a little bit and jump out of that box?
No, because I only ever do what I want to do, really, and I choose what I want to do. And so I've not been restricted by anybody. I mean, I don't get offered many other things than the stuff I do. So sometimes I think when I see people in films, I think, I could have played that. Why has nobody ever asked me to do that? But I think people have an image of me as this sort of person who only does the things that she writes and doesn't want to be offered anything, because I hardly ever am.
Well, it might be true, mightn't it, that you quite like to control what you do?
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody offers you a part, you don't get to control it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've certainly found that.
Yeah.
When did you start to control what you did in terms of, you've obviously always written it, but when did you decide that you might be able to call the shots?
I don't know, really. What's lovely is if you work with somebody who brings something else to it. So I think sometimes it's a bit limiting when you just rely on your own vision. And I know for myself, I'm not a very visual person, so I'm always glad to work with somebody else who has a good eye.
The reason I'm asking you that is because I think we had a moment, Jen and I, when we realised that you could go into the editing suite and you could make some choices about things. And Jennifer now will have monitors facing her on the floor when she's making TV.
Yeah, and the two Ronnies used to do that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I think sometimes if you've written a sketch and you know the way it goes, it's very hard.
I think with sketches, I think you have to call the shots, really, because it's only you understands, that it's funny you looking like that, but it's not funny me looking like this, and you have to say that.
Plus, quite a lot gets lost from writing something on a page. You cannot expect someone else to totally understand everything. There are things you forget to write.
Yeah.
And
yes.
you just have a shorthand and you're amazed when people don't know what that is. Do you wish there were more women performing, or are you secretly glad there aren't?
No, I used to be delighted. There weren't any, because I thought it gave me an advantage. And truthfully, I really don't care, because all that matters is that people are good. And it seems to me that the reason there are so few is that only a few have chosen to do it. It's not that people couldn't do it, it's just that they don't want to. Because it is an odd thing to want to do, and maybe it is a more male thing to want to control a huge bunch of people. I don't know. I mean, I've always thought that the only way you'll answer that question is why there's so few, which you haven't asked me, but I'm asking myself and answering. You have to ask the ones who felt they couldn't do it, and you think, well, why couldn't you do it? There's this idea that there's female comedy and there's comedy, and I just wanted to be comedy.
Yeah. I sort of wish more younger women would step up, really.
I just wish it wasn't a question that ever had to be asked.
Yeah,
that you didn't have to make.
But
this
even
programme.
I'm not making this program for that reason.
No,
at all.
no.
But I am interested in the fact that you really can go along to any comedy club and you can ask if you can stand up and do a bit of. You could do 3 minutes in front of the mic, and anybody will let you do that virtually.
Yes.
But for some reason, hardly any girls do that.
Yes.
Girls that are great and very funny just don't think that's a proper job, or they don't think they want to do it, and yet they love watching you. They tell me they love watching us. So I don't understand why they don't regard it as a career,
No, I don't understand that. Well,
No.
we can't understand it because we've done it as a career.
Yeah, but by accident almost. Certainly in my case, It wasn't as if I thought, hey, there's the thing I want to do. I mean, I didn't think that. I sort of fell into it and thought, I can't believe this. Having a really good time, and somebody thinks this is okay to do as a job.
Yes.
So I always felt, maybe I feel a bit guilty about it. Maybe. Could be that. What about the writing? Do you work with a computer?
I write longhand. I can touch type, but I prefer to. I write jokes longhand. I write more serious things on the computer.
Oh, do you?
But jokes, I hardly write them down, so it's not like a proper script. It's just sort of ideas, and I work it out on the stage.
Are you very disciplined about the hours that you work?
Well, I don't know. I mean, all I can say is it gets done. I don't worry about when I do it now. I just do it when I've got to do it.
Oh, did you used to worry about it then?
I used to do set hours, and then but then half the time I'd be sitting there not doing anything. Well, this is stupid. So I've loosened up on that, but it all gets done.
Not a procrastinator then?
No.
Oh.
I know you are.
I didn't used to be, funny enough. That was Jennifer's job, and she still does that. I used to be definitely, we can't leave the room until something's written. It's kind of sort of Protestant work ethic or something. I sort of felt we've got to be clocked in, and by the time we leave, you're clocked off. Especially now that there's kids to get home for and busy things that you must do. There's only certain part of the day that's available for it.
Yes.
So I sort of feel that, we ought to have done something in this time. But I know that the kind of work we do comes out of chatting to each other and having ideas that ping out of the air. And they can't ping out of the air unless you're relaxed. And Jennifer will say, let's go and have a drink somewhere. Let's go to Claridge's and drink expensive champagne, see what that feels like for a little while and see if something happens. So, but it's very tempting then to just play. Yeah. And never to get on with it,
But that's when there's two of you, that's different,
Yeah,
that's one of you. I'm not going to take myself to Claridge's.
No. Well, I'll meet you there anytime you like. Yeah, anytime you like. Do you? Is anything material to you?
No.
What's off limits then?
Hardly anything is.
Oh. I mean, would you plunder your? Well, you do, I think, or maybe you don't. Maybe it's a surface thing. Do you plunder your own life then?
Very little. I feel very odd about it, really. I never felt I could talk much about my children, which was the major part of my life, because that seemed so rude to them, really, to sort of make them into almost figures of fun. So I've done that very, very sparingly and in a very non-specific way. But I did used to say that my son, when he was born, looked like something out of the Beano. And I said it when he was about 3, and he always says, "Oh, you used to say I looked like something out of the Beano." God, could have said much worse than that. And now, because I'm separated and my marriage has broken down, which, some people think, that's a routine. And I think, well, I can't. How can I? Because it's painful, and there's somebody else involved, and I've got 2 children, and part of me would love to do a big routine part, and another part of me is absolutely horrified by the thought.
And that's the part that wins, obviously.
Yeah, that's
you decide
the part
not
that
to
wins.
Because you want to be honourable about that.
Yes, yeah.
And it's private.
And it's private, yeah. But on another level, I like saying things that are truthful. So it's a complicated thing what you pick and choose out of your life, because you're trying to use things that other people recognise. Yeah. So I have to pick the things I think other people will tune into without being dishonest. I don't want to just stand there spouting a load of lies. So it's complicated.
Well, what goes through your head when you're performing stand-up?
Well, I think I have learned to enjoy it. Now, I never used to enjoy it. Still, I was thinking, then, what's the next thing? I suppose that when I do stand up now, and I'm telling jokes and talking, it's as if I'm just doing it for the first time, for that one night, and those things are very real. It's all very real to me. When I say, this happened or that happened, it's as if it really has happened, even though it's lies. And it's you are really in the moment. I'm able to be in the moment, which is very lovely.
Are you thinking ahead a lot, and are you editing anything, or
no?
Are you making mental notes of what you might change, or
no? I think when I come off, I might think, actually, da 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 da. But at the time, so it's always sinking in at some level.
Do people ever thank you for making them laugh?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's lovely. I take that as a, I think, I don't brush it off, because I think it's a lovely thing to be thanked. And I think it's a lovely thing if you have a job that is life enhancing in some way. So I feel really fortunate to have had that job and been able to do that thing. So I don't dismiss it. And even though I know myself, I've not always had the enjoyment out of it that I might have had, I do appreciate the fact that other people have had huge enjoyment. And when I see other people work and it gives me a buzz, then I know that other people are getting that buzz off me. So I'm not going to be dismissive of it now. I'm very grateful for it.
Were you, do you think?
Yes, I was, because I didn't want to get conceited. So people, I said, but now, I'll lap it up now.
Do you think that you will be doing stand-up forever?
I don't know. I think this is a complication to do with women that men don't have. I think there is a perception of a woman not being able to do something after a certain age. And because comedy is tied up with attractiveness in some way, even though most of us not overtly sexy or glamorous, I think there is a prejudice against older women doing anything, like reading the news. So I can't deny that would be a consideration. So I don't know. I mean,
and how will you know? You'll just wait until it feels uncomfortable?
I don't know, because I thought a couple of years I had stopped doing it. I had stopped doing stand-up, but I don't know whether I really have or not. Or I might have to carry on doing it. And I was 50 then, and I thought, well, 50 is a good time to stop. And I don't need to do it. There's other things I can do.
But you might want to do it.
If I want to do it, then I think it'll be the right thing to do. And bollocks to anybody who thinks I'm too old to do it.
Yeah. In America, you find Joan Rivers, but you find people that will crack on with it because they're obviously enjoying it or they want to do it.
Yeah.
But I can't think of anybody.
But then there hasn't been any mainstream stand-up comedians yet. I mean, apart from myself, I'm probably the oldest one. I would think. I can't think of anybody. God. I probably am the oldest one. So I guess it's up to me. It's up to me to either carry on or not. I am the vanguard.
Yeah.
But I won't carry on unless I've got something to say. It's really whether you've got something to say.
Yeah, and you have got the pressure of nobody's done this before, so is it right or wrong?
Yeah, definitely. It's a funny old thing, really. Because I imagine that by this time, as you would have thought, that there would be a lot of girls going round playing the big theatres and having the big telly show and doing the big shows or running at the West End or something. And there aren't any.
No.
There aren't any comparable to you and Jennifer and myself.
Yeah.
If you're doing stand-up, I think you've got to have something to say. Once you remove yourself from that sort of, the frilly-shirted Tarby style comedian where they just did, my mother-in-law said this, I walked into a bar. Once you start trying to do routines a bit about yourself, you've got to know something about the world or something about yourself. And when I started at 21, I didn't have anything to say at all. So I could write sort of little funny songs, but they were just feeble, really. It was like sort of sixth form stuff. But a few years down the line, I sort of got a line on something.